Hello everyone, and thank you for attending today's OzLINK for UPS webinar series. Today's topic will be extending the capabilities of OzLINK for UPS Custom. My name is Jamie Doherty, and I'm the Marketing Manager at Oz Development. I'll be moderating today's event. We'd like to start off by having you answer a few poll questions. We're opening up the first question. You'll find the poll question to the right-hand side of the screen under an area marked polls. And the first question is your UPS WorldShip integrated today? If you can take a minute to answer those poll questions, that would be great. Okay, everyone, thank you so much. We're actually going to close this poll question and have you answer the second poll question. And the second poll question is, what are your biggest shipping challenges? If you can take a minute to fill that out for us, that would be great. All right, thank you, everybody. We're going to go ahead and close out this poll. So taking a look at the results here, it looks like through our presentation we'll be covering most everyone's needs. Today we are going to cover the benefits of extending the capabilities of UPS WorldShip by integrating into your pick, pack, and ship process. You will also learn how to streamline fulfillment and increase accuracy, efficiency, and customer satisfaction, all helping you achieve a faster time to value. There are a few housekeeping items I wanted to mention before I introduce our speakers. The first is we will be recording this webinar, so you will all receive a copy of the slides as well as the recorded event after the presentation. We also will be keeping all of you on mute, so our speakers will be answering questions after the presentation. So please feel free to send your questions through the question button, also located on the right-hand side of your screen in the Tools panel. And if there are some questions that come up while our speakers are talking that are relevant, we will try to catch those as they are doing demos in those sections. So without further ado, I would like to introduce today's speakers. First is Brian Hodgson. He's the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Oz Development. And secondly, Troy Graham. He's the Director of Business Development at Oz Development. And at this time, I'll turn the presentation over to Brian and Troy and ask them about their thoughts on the full questions. So our first question, we had 65% say yes to the fact that they were already integrated into WorldShip.
And as we talk to customers, I mean, the level of integration varies greatly. It might be something like a batch file that gets loaded into WorldShip. It might be some information gets put back in the accounting ERP system, and a lot of it depends on the process. And when we're talking and trying to drive the best practices in our customers and addressing some of the other pain points that on the second poll, so what we talk about is real-time integration or getting costs tracking numbers back into the host system that then can provide visibility to the rest of the organization. So shipping is not sort of isolated from other parts of the organization that may need that information.
Yeah, and I think the other aspect of that integration question that we'll talk about and try to highlight some in our discussion today are things that are typically referred to as some of the business rules. We talk with a lot of companies where there might be some address information that's flowing from an accounting or order management system into the WorldShip software, but there's still business rules and decisions that are being placed on the hands of the people out in the shipping department. One of the goals of our integration is to be able to automate some of those business decisions in addition to sharing information amongst the internal systems that you have in your company. So I think that's good. Certainly we'll hopefully address both for the companies today that are WorldShip is not integrated. We'll talk about some of that capability. And then additionally for those customers where there is some integration, talking about are we fully optimizing the technology that we have available to us to streamline the fulfillment process.
Okay, and our second question today was, what are your biggest shipping challenges? And it looks like overwhelmingly most people, 69% actually answered capturing shipping charges and providing the correct rates back.
Yeah, so this is a very, very common question we hear a lot, and we'll talk today about some of the rules, again, that can be applied to this process. One of our goals here is to make sure that you have the information that you need internally inside your business to manage your business and your customers efficiently. And oftentimes that is, part of that process is, what do we charge our customers for shipping? And it may be something where I need to charge my customer a published shipping cost, but from an accounting perspective, I want to track my actual shipping cost. So having that information readily available is a very, very common concern or business challenge that we'll talk today about how we can address that for your particular business.
And the other dimension, it also impacts all these other areas, is typically your businesses are complex. So for one customer, you may be shipping on their account. You may have things like free shipping from a promotion standpoint, which then makes it a little more complicated to capturing those shipping charges, making sure that, hey, if you're doing that, you're doing it in the right way. It's driving additional business. There may be retail partners, customers that you're shipping to that have different rules. So balancing those shipping charges against some of these other pain points, too much clerical data entry is pretty high at 42%, and that's also just a recipe for errors and making mistakes, which end up costing you both not just the labor, but actually some hard dollars. We'll talk about that in the ROI. A lot of what we'll talk about today is really trying to sort of automate those business rules and streamline the process to address each of these issues, because you can focus on one, but it might actually cause an issue in the other area as well. It's all balancing the resources you apply to solve each of these four areas.
All right, great. Thanks, Brian and Troy. And like I said, we're going to start the presentation now. And Brian, go ahead, take it away.
Thanks, Jamie, and thanks everyone for taking the time to attend this afternoon or this morning if you're out west. So today we're going to just quickly go through a little background on Oz, the company, Oz Development, and then we'll spend a little more time on sort of what are the drivers and where the opportunities to create savings, revenue opportunities, serve your customers in a much more efficient way by leveraging WorldShip and extensions and technology to do that. And as Troy talked about, business rules are a key element of that. Then we'll go through and give you a little more detail on the solutions and tool set from OzLINK, including a demo to see how it works in action. So in terms of Oz has been around for over 10 years. We've been working with UPS here at Oz and previously for over 20. We have extensive knowledge in the logistics and the warehouse and shipping space. And our customers really span a wide variety of sizes and industries. It could be small entrepreneurial companies, it could be large Fortune 500 companies. But if a company ships with UPS, there's a tool set that OzLINK has that can help improve that experience. And then more recently, earlier this year, we were promoted to the UPS Ready Strategic level. So that's a technology program, partnership program that UPS has for their really most select technology partners. There's a handful that achieve that strategic level, and we're really proud to achieve that earlier this year. So in terms of where the opportunities, so what's driving the pain points with managing the cost, too much clerical work, and making it more complex? I mean, in our customers, as we speak to them, their sales channels, your sales channels are expanding. So it may be things like, it might be a small entrepreneurial company that's started, let's say, on eBay, is now adding other marketplaces. It might be a more established company that is selling, traditionally through their e-commerce site, through their sales team, and now they're adding, some marketplaces. Or maybe you win a big opportunity with a large retailer, so now you're fulfilling items and servicing them as another channel. But the number of channels and the opportunity is growing, and that adds complexity. And also what's, feeding back to shipping, what's the right service? SurePost, Mail Innovations, Ground, balancing that service against the customer's expectations, which are, continuously increasing in terms of what they expect, in terms of balancing of that cost as well as what gets serviced. And that could be consumer, but it could be a business in terms of their requirements for compliant labels, how things are sent to them. I mean, their demands are increasing, and they're pushing that back typically to their suppliers so they can optimize their fulfillment and their operation. And then within the warehouse, so that means it's just increased complexity. So you might be, grown up in one area. As you add a channel, that creates exceptions in your process. If those are handled manually, it's harder to manage. Producing the documents, which we saw earlier as a pain point, doing that for, let's say, a large retailer like a Target, can be straightforward. But if it's, a percentage of your orders, and someone's having to remember to do that and do that in the right way, that adds cost from a experience standpoint, labor standpoint, potential errors. So the complexity in the warehouse is increasing because of this as well.
And I think a lot of times, to add to that, Brian, that we see companies as they're expanding sales channels or opening new sales channels, there's a lot of excitement in a business about, hey, here's new revenue opportunities. From a warehouse perspective, it's sort of often forgot about. Well, yeah, the warehouse's jobs got much more complicated. We got higher volume, but you didn't get more staff. You didn't get an increased budget. You didn't get more space. So you're generally being asked for producing more processing, more order throughput with typically the same staff. And I think that's really a key to leveraging technology to say, we're not expanding the people. We're trying to keep our costs low. Let's automate those complexities. Even this time of year with holiday seasons coming up, we see lots of temporary help, and we want to try to take that complexity away from somebody's experience in the warehouse and leverage the software to make those decisions for us so we can keep costs down. If we need temporary help, those people can be effective in your distribution model, but not having, sort of towards this third bullet point here, not having a negative impact on customer expectations, because we are seeing more and more today that customers are demanding more. They're buying online. They want their shipments, as quickly as possible. They want them as inexpensively as possible, and they want to know where they are. And again, those demands are often placed on the staff in the warehouse. And that may even be, your sales teams, e-commerce teams that may be demanding better visibility into the shipping process. And so to me, that's an opportunity for improving your operations, keeping costs low through the use of some technology that we'll show you today.
So we'll step through some examples from our customer base, just to give some examples of how the technology get applied to create real cost savings and a better customer experience. On the first case, it was a shipping they provide. They manufacture plumbing supplies, and it was a service area. They do sort of 7,500 shipments a day. It was fairly paper-based in terms of how they produced the pack slip. They did invoices post-shipment. So that resulted in a fair number of customer calls coming back into the organization. As Troy said, the customer's expectations, they have an experience in sort of the consumer world of how they get there, how they buy things, how they receive goods, and they're continuously, getting the information at their fingertips is is an expectation that keeps going up. So the result was, with this paper process, they were getting a lot of calls. Where's my shipment? I got the shipment, but the invoice hasn't come. All those sort of questions. And they also wanted to build, a little more brand loyalty. So what they implemented was integrated in a branded email. So as that shipment went out, they sent an email with their brand that outlined, okay, it's been shipped. So again, probably saving that first call even from coming into the call center and reinforcing their brand with that customer. So with that, they really cut down dramatically on the inbound calls to their call center that said, hey, where is my good? I got an invoice separate from the goods, and I'm confused about what it is relative to what was in the shipment. And then also in terms of with that invoice, the time to get paid, they reduced that payment time.
The other example here is a company that sells machinery and tools, so bigger, heavier pieces of equipment, and they really faced some challenges where it wasn't super high volume per day, but the cost of a mistake was very, very high. It was $600 to $1,000. If they ended up sending the wrong piece of equipment out to a customer, having to get that piece of equipment back, risking it being damaged, and then sending out the correct piece of equipment was very, very expensive. They shipped both domestically and internationally, and they had serialized equipment that they wanted to make sure that they could track from an ongoing warranty and customer service perspective. So the solution that they implemented was a combined packing and shipping process where, through the use of some simple barcode scanning technology, they could do a pack validation to make sure that before anything left their facility, the customer was going to get the right product. They were also now able to capture those serial numbers, so if they received a phone call from their customer after the product was received, they knew what serial number it was, they knew the warranty period, and that information was available back in their primary business ERP system. The end result of automating that packing and shipping process for them was just over a $24,000 per year saving. In addition to that, they were providing better customer service because they knew more information about the equipment they were sending to their customer, and they were reducing mistakes where the wrong piece of equipment went out to their customer in the first place.
And in both these cases, the customer experience is fundamental and not necessarily, it's not easy to quantify from a dollar savings, but as customers have a bad experience, they don't come back and they don't buy again. And something as simple as phoning in your provider and then having them ask you what the serial number is. And I know when I phone my bank and they ask me 3 or 4 times the same information, it just, I'd prefer someone who knew that stuff about me already. Okay, so a couple more here. One, the one here on the left is fulfillment. They provide, it's a gourmet food provider, e-commerce, all online, all their business online, and a decent volume. They do 200-300 a day. Now, one of the challenges they had was they had different documents for the pick, pack, the label, and with that volume, they do some batch processing, and as a result, sometimes got those. Because they weren't all sort of integrated together, they may end up shipping the wrong thing to the wrong person. And a lot of their customers are buying things for gifts around the holiday season. So obviously that becomes not only costly to repair, just to remedy from a cost of transportation, shipping, replacing those products, getting those products out, but again, back to that customer satisfaction issue. So what they did is they did an integrated pack slip with the UPS label as part of that. In their warehouse, they go pick that item, put it in the box, and apply the UPS label right as part of that pick-pack process. So streamlining that whole piece, eliminating those missed shipments to the wrong customers. And what they would do, they estimated the number of errors. It was reduced, $36 per. So with that volume, obviously that adds up to a decent amount of hard dollars that can justify these sort of things.
Another example is a home lighting company where they were shipping largely to consumers or in some cases contractors, but mainly an e-commerce business. But one of their challenges was processing returns. It was a higher-end brand company, They wanted to make sure that customer experience was top-notch. What they found is in their business they were having 10 or 15 returns per day, and it was a very manual process to issue an RMA, get a return services tracking label to my customer, and then ultimately get the product back into their facility. So they were spending a couple of hours a day dealing with these returns, so that was time, just sort of going against the bottom line for them. And ultimately what they were looking for was an integrated solution with their ERP system so that if they received a phone call and needed to be able to get a return services label out to a customer, that could be done with just a couple of mouse clicks. That customer could instantly receive that return services label and then apply it to the product they had and ship it back to them. So as opposed to that customer waiting a few days or a few hours to get that return services label, that could be done very quickly, right at the point with that first phone call. For them, for this particular company, it was the measurable savings was time savings. Taking that process from 2 hours a day down to just a few minutes a day allowed them to save just over $17,000 a year, and it greatly reduced mistakes. When products came back into the warehouse, they knew exactly what it was. There wasn't a lot of time spent trying to figure out whose product was it. Is it the right product? Is it really damaged? What the issue was. They had that information up front as part of their customer service process.
So given the sort of the drivers and the increased complexity in the warehouse and the cost savings opportunities, we see three areas that our customers can drive value. One is around streamline the pick, pack, ship process. So we've talked about that with things like the combined pick ticket label, applying barcode scanning, things like pack verification, making sure what's on the order is actually going into the box. In terms of servicing the customer channels, applying business rules. We'll talk a bit more about business rules to streamline the carrier selection appropriately, but also reinforce your brand. So that might be a branded email that goes out to them proactively. If you're working with a retailer, shipping to Target or on their behalf, even drop shipping. Again, that's an opportunity for you from a business standpoint, but executing and shipping that with the right documentation to that end customer is both, it's important for the customer, but it's also important for your relationship with that large retailer and providing some of the drop ship capabilities and various, return scenarios. So we talked about one in the previous case study where it's a more RMA. Maybe there's a scenario in, often in apparel where you're providing a return label as part of the outgoing shipment. Again, really, giving that consumer the best experience that they can have. And then finally, given the various customers and the different modes and maybe mixing, some freight type shipments in or international type shipments, how to produce the right documents for each shipment and really only for that shipment. I mean, I was speaking to one customer who had, before they'd implemented OzLINK, they're producing some of their retail documentation for all their shipments just because it was easier to do than figure out which shipments to do it. And just from a training and a user standpoint, they produced it, but they only used it for the ones that were drop shipped and serviced that retail channel. Obviously, that creates additional waste and time, and as you get more and more to those channels and processes, it becomes just unmanageable. And to Troy's point, if you're bringing on new staff, new warehouse in a peak period, you can't have sort of things in people's heads of how to manage different processes.
One other last point, Brian, just to mention on here on the shipping documentation is international. We see many, many companies today that their volume of shipping into international markets is growing. And in many cases, that international process is sort of manual. You might have a line out in the warehouse with a shipping process, but international shipments are handled differently. They go to a specific person. They take 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes per shipment to process. So if you find yourself processing more international shipments, let's leverage the information that we have in your order management system to streamline international shipping to be just as quick as a domestic package. And it's something that we've already started to see this year really, really expanding is the use of things like the UPS paperless invoice But if we can automate that so the shippers aren't manually entering data, it's a very simple time saver and the elimination of an opportunity for a mistake to be made.
We talk a lot about business rules with our customers, and essentially its ability to pick what's the right UPS service and maybe some special services for this particular shipment. So residential might be best SurePost, Mail Innovations. So based on weight, it might be ground, or based on a customer expectation, maybe it's second day, next day, those sort of things. So picking the right service, and maybe, or there could be other attributes of the shipment. Maybe it's a valuable, high value item, so you want proof of delivery automatically turned on. So essentially, business rules picks the right UPS service, additional service, based on any kind of shipment attribute. Could be the weight of the item, the value of the item, could be the destination. So maybe it's going into an environment, an urban environment where it can't be left on the door, on the doorstep. So you want a signature required, those sort of things. And automating those processes that's really what business rules are about. So any shipment attribute could be the commodity, could be international in terms of the destination or the origin. If you have multiple locations, maybe fulfilling it from one particular location can drive down the cost and provide opportunity. So the variations are actually unlimited, and it's really figuring out what's the right process and what stickies do your shipping people kind of have on their computer to remember some of these things, and can you automate that? Anything that's written down on a sticky can probably be automated, and it'll be automated in a much more efficient way.
And it may even be something specific about a customer. So you may have, your top customers have a loyalty program, and they get upgraded shipping, at no additional charge, or something of that nature, where based on who the customer is, we want to drive that service selection. Or, lots of times today when you're ordering products, the shipping service isn't really called out specifically. A company might say, well, we have economy shipping, we have expedited shipping, and we have next day shipping. Well, a customer may come to you and pay for a next day shipping, but we can have the technology look at time and transit information and say, well, you know what? That shipment will get there via ground in one day. So inside the company, we're going to use the system to decide, let's ship that ground via next day air service. It's going to get there at the same time. So business rules can be enacted by not only the shipment details, but actually by attributes of your customer as well.
And the business rules and the integration, we talked about integration, high percentage of integration. It's hard to separate out the integration from the business rules, because often when that order comes across from the accounting system, business rules are applied. And there's a question here that I think is probably good to address. We have our own developed company software. How hard is it to integrate OzLINK with our own software and integrate with UPS?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that comes up a lot, and I think we tend to talk about the commercially available ERP systems, Mass 90 and Great Plains and NetSuite and those things. But a lot of companies have something that they've built internally or they've modified heavily internally. And OzLINK, the way OzLINK is designed is, I use the example of a Swiss Army knife. It's got tools for every job. So depending on your internally built system, we can use, for example, a web services connection to your system, or an ODBC type connection, or a socket level communication with your internally built system. And by design of the Swiss Army knife approach, we can connect to that type of system, and that's a very, very common thing for us to do with OzLINK, and it was part of the design of OzLINK from the ground up.
So here we have a couple of examples of output of some of the OzLINK solutions. In this case, you have the combination, sort of pick ticket UPS label on the right. So the orders come out into your warehouse ready to get picked. As part of the pick pack process, they use this document and apply the label. You can see on the right is your packing slip. Apply the label, assuming you have all items. It's 100% fulfilled. You can then just drop that pack slip in the shipment and apply the label. So again, a pretty straightforward example of that.
And these packing slips can be configured, so it can have your brand, your look, your feel. And I'm going to show you another example that was kind of a unique customer example in a few minutes, but the idea is all the information in one spot, so we're not trying to match up labels with packing slip information.
And then here's some examples of the customer branded. So on the left, you have an email notification that comes out at shipment time. Again, not waiting till the end of the day, but also it's branded with the company, so reinforcing your brand with your customers. And then on the right are some examples of drop shipping, fulfilling on the behalf of a retail partner. And then to build on the the documents that could be produced in terms of, again, going back to that retail partner, if you're shipping their warehouse, they may demand, or they definitely will, a compliant label. It's say what's in each box that streamlines their receiving process. So producing that alongside the UPS label, streamlining that at the pack ship process can be a key improvement area. As their customers and your channels change, leveraging freight and incorporating freight into your mix, again, is a good opportunity, obviously, to really leverage the broader capabilities that UPS is offering. And Troy already talked about the international shipments, which can be quite complex. In a study we did a while ago, there's sort of two major concerns around international often are the complexity of the documentation and international credit cards. So at least on this first one, we can help solve that problem and streamline that.
Guys, I think we have another question having to do with labels. I think it's a good time to answer. So OzLINK actually processes the labels, or is the label created in WorldShip? I see the branded invoices, but can we continue to make branded labels as we currently do through WorldShip?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's actually a good leading question because we're going to do a quick demonstration of a couple of examples of OzLINK and how it integrates. But to answer the question, we'll leverage UPS WorldShip to print the shipping labels that you'll see in a minute. So if you're doing a customized label through WorldShip, you can continue to do that with your logo and your branding embedded in that label. Sorry.
So we're going to do a little quick overview of the OzLINK Solutions. So OzLINK for UPS really made up of four solutions. On the bottom is OzLINK for UPS. That's a front office rating tool. It's actually free, ideal for sort of telesales, telemarketing teams that need to provide quotes over the phone to their customers. We have OzLINK for UPS Plus, which is a more advanced rating tool, and it has some pretty innovative batch processes integrated with Excel for batch rating, batch tracking, those sort of things. The focus of today's session is really how to leverage WorldShip. So the top two solutions are WorldShip integration solutions. As Troy said, we leverage the capabilities of WorldShip and integrate it to the host. So the first, OzLINK for UPS Pro, provides pre-built out-of-the-box integration with QuickBooks and NetSuite. And then OzLINK for UPS Custom provides integration to virtually any back-end host system and can apply all sorts of business rules, all of the documents we've talked about here. And those are solutions really that we're focusing on from a demo and detailed perspective today.
We're going to start, we'll do our demonstration in a minute. We'll look at the QuickBooks integration, but as Brian said, that OzLINK Pro solution is an out-of-the-box, meaning you can download it in a couple of minutes, have your WorldShip system connected to your QuickBooks or your NetSuite accounting system. A couple of highlights there. One is OzLINK Pro will integrate with any version of QuickBooks. So many companies today using QuickBooks are migrating over to the web-based or the online edition of QuickBooks, which is fully supported through OzLINK Pro. And same with NetSuite, all editions, including OneWorld and NetSuite, are supported through OzLINK Pro. And when we say out-of-the-box integration, what we mean is the availability to share information real-time in both directions, meaning I can pass information to WorldShip and bring information back to my accounting system. And as part of that integration, have support for all of the services available within UPS WorldShip. So things like the paperless invoice we've mentioned, UPS freight or LTL type shipping, shore post, and mail innovation. So it is a very well-rounded solution that allows us to leverage all of the UPS capabilities for the NetSuite and QuickBooks users. And we'll take a look at that in just a minute.
And then OzLINK Custom, as I said, the integration is typically built based on a customer's needs. So it could be a legacy system, any number of other back-end systems, Microsoft Dynamics, the Sage family, you name it. We have integrations to 25, 30 different back-end systems. And then often as part of the integration, the business rules we talked about are applied. At a high level, the user experience is very similar between the two. We're trying to keep that very simple. Behind the scenes, you'll see that in the demo. And again, key information, getting it out of the system, the order information, and writing the tracking and the costs back in. In terms of the challenge earlier today with highlighting, hey, capturing costs and allocating them appropriately, that's again how business rules can maybe apply based on customer, how these things get written back into that accounting system.
So here are some examples of some of the common e-commerce, ERP, accounting systems, and some of the common technologies that will be used for some of those internally built types of systems. So you can stop, take a look here. You'll see, again, a lot of the more commonly available systems here. But this is just a sample. As Brian mentioned, there's a lot of other systems that are available to be integrated with OzLINK. So if you don't see your particular application here, or if you're using a combination of these, like let's say we're shipping from eBay and Amazon, can we support a single process for shipping automation through a couple of different systems? It's certainly something that we can assist with through the OzLINK platform.
And before we move on, gentlemen, we have another question on whether this is just PC friendly or is it also Mac environment friendly?
That's a good question. Today, because we're leveraging UPS WorldShip, and WorldShip is exclusively PC-based, the assumption is really it's a PC-based solution. If you are running a Mac and you use Parallels or Boot Camp, it would allow you to run those Windows components on your Mac, but in essence, it really is a Windows-based solution today.
Thank you.
You bet. All right. So what I was going to do was show you a couple of examples of OzLINK in action, and I was going to use two different host accounting systems. The first one I'm going to start with is actually not the one I clicked on, is QuickBooks. So we're going to start with an OzLINK Pro solution here. So I happen to be running a Premier edition of QuickBooks on my computer here. And the thing that I want to highlight is that the process is pretty straightforward and pretty simple. We talked earlier about we want to target the solution towards a temporary employee, a new employee. We don't want to rely on the person in the warehouse to remember lots of business rules. So here I've got a sales order, and the way my OzLINK is configured, I can just type in, or even if I use a simple barcode scanner, I can scan in my order number from my accounting system. In this case, it's QuickBooks, and it's going to automatically push into UPS WorldShip all of the relevant shipping information for that order. So it's going to bring real-time from QuickBooks my shipping address information, service level information, reference numbers, any additional piece of information that you would like, declared value, third-party billing. That information all flows automatically, and those business rules for selecting, for example, a service level or an accessorial, that can happen automatically. So if I'm the person in the warehouse, I put the box on the scale, I hit process shipment, and in this case I've got not a great address in my QuickBooks. I hit process shipment, that will print out my shipping label for me, and that will also automatically go back and update QuickBooks with shipment details. So if I'm a customer service person and I get a phone call from this customer, I instantly know, great, your package has been shipped, here's the shipping weight, the shipping cost, the tracking number for that information. That's all available to me real time directly inside of my QuickBooks. I no longer need to pick up the phone, call the shipping department, walk out, log into WorldShip to see that information. We can see that real time. And the information that comes back to that accounting system is configurable. So, we may bill some customers for shipping and not bill others for shipping. Those types of business rules can be applied to information coming back into the accounting or ERP system as well. The second example that I'm going to show you is actually using a different accounting system. I'm going to use a Great Plains environment in my second example here. So I'm going to minimize my QuickBooks here.
Hey, Troy, before you
go ahead.
jump in there, one quick question. Do I have to start in QuickBooks, or do I have to open it in shipping?
Say that again for me.
So the question was, do they have to start with QuickBooks, or do they have to start in the UPS WorldShip?
Really, they just need that order number for the transaction that they want to process. So they don't really have to have QuickBooks open. I happen to have it open in my example here because I wanted to be able to look at the results of that shipment, but I don't necessarily have to have QuickBooks open. The other thing that's available there is I have the ability to support QuickBooks in a remote hosted type of environment. So if I want to, or if my QuickBooks happens to be hosted by a third party, I can go ahead and still have OzLINK connected to my QuickBooks system for me.
Great.
Yeah, and in the QuickBooks space, as Troy said, the online version is a fair bit of growth, but we also see the other versions being managed remotely, maybe through a hosted provider and different solutions. So understanding what you have is important. And but again, we can integrate to each of those items, each of those versions, I should say, editions.
So if I pull up that Great Plains in this case, this is my Great Plains sales order number, and Jamie, to the question that got asked earlier, I can have Great Plains open. I don't have to have Great Plains open. In my particular case, I'm going to look up the order that I want to ship, and then I can just press this ship button at the top of the screen here. Very similar to the example that we saw with QuickBooks and OzLINK Pro, as I click that UPS button, we're going to retrieve real-time from GP the address information, service level information, reference information, apply any business rules. So if I'm out in the warehouse, again, I want to think about nothing more than put the box on the scale, select process shipment, and that should be all I really need to be thinking about. Let's get that label onto the package, and let's move on to the next shipment. But just like the QuickBooks integration, my GP system is still updated real time. So I have, in this particular case, I have my shipping costs coming back to GP. I have my tracking information coming back, service level information coming back. I also happen to have mine configured now so that I'm attaching what's called a note inside of GP to this sales order. So a lot of people say, you know what, I want all of that shipment detail in one spot. And the way GP is set up is there isn't one screen where I have easy access to all of that information. So we can use a note, and this is an example of something that could be a customer-specific business requirement. This note's very handy for some companies, so they want it attached there. One other thing I wanted to make sure to show you quickly was the output from WorldShip. We talked earlier about, can I use that branded branded label that comes out of WorldShip? And you absolutely can. You can use the combined packing slip shipping label. And I actually wanted to grab a quick example that I mentioned earlier that was sort of a unique example where we have a document here that has the top half is my packing slip type information for my customer. The bottom left side of this particular form is my shipping label for sending my shipment out to my customer. But also included in this form is a return services label. So this was something specific to this customer's requirements where when they delivered a shipment, they wanted to also have return services label in every box. But the final thing that also makes this kind of a unique example is down at the very bottom of this form, there's additional barcode information. So on their shipping label, they wanted some additional information that when that package was leaving their facility, they could scan that barcode as a validation to say, yep, we know 100% this package left the facility. And then on the return services label, they will be able to scan that barcode to be able to look up, okay, we know who this shipment came from. So it was increasing some operational efficiency in the scenario where a customer ended up returning product as well. So I use this as a sort of a complex example, but to give you some ideas to think about where this label could have, let's say, a gift message. Brian mentioned earlier a company where they sold a lot of gift items. Maybe you want to have a gift card that says, you know, happy birthday, Mom, as part of that shipment, and make sure the right gift message goes to the right consumer. So these forms can be very, very configurable based on your business needs.
And similarly, the email notification. I mean, we have customers who they may also include, you know, an online coupon that they, you know, they get the email, you can click and get a coupon for, you know, obviously coming back and providing more business back to the company. So, I mean, the flexibility is, you know, really provides a lot of different opportunities to leverage and build out with you know, operational process, but also, you know, improve the customer experience and relationship.
Before you guys move on, we do have another quick question. Will OzLINK, based on customer rules, be able to write a freight line rather than a note on freight amount to an ERP program? Can it be configured to know if a freight line already exists to ignore this feature?
This is a great question, actually, and the answer is absolutely. So we have certain companies, like my QuickBooks example that I showed a few minutes ago. We have companies where they have an existing item in their QuickBooks order that might be called shipping or freight or something like that, and they want to go ahead and update that existing line with a shipping cost. So that's certainly something you can do. We can also configure OzLINK to add that freight line in many cases to that invoice. So those are two great questions and absolutely things that we can help accomplish.
And as a follow-up to that, there's another question. Is OzLINK running the inventory management, or is it just reporting back to ERP, and ERP deducts that product from the inventory?
Yeah, OzLINK's really about integration in the business rules. So in this case, OzLINK will write back the result to the ERP system, and the ERP system manages and updates the inventory. We're really trying to leverage the core function of all the applications. So, you know, ERP accounting systems are good at, you know, keeping track of financials, inventory, sales orders, receipts, those sort of things. WorldShip, you know, obviously is, you know, strong at producing the labels, all the flexibility in the services that UPS offers, and we really integrate those in a seamless, sort of simple way that really provides that productivity and you know, common information across the systems in a single process.
We do have a lot more questions coming in. I'm going to let you guys finish up the presentation, and we'll address those questions at the end.
So in terms of, you know, what we've talked about, there's a, you know, a list of sort of 7 or 8, 10 things here that you could evaluate to, you know, drive opportunities in your business. The first one, we said, hey, there's a lot of people who are integrated based on that poll. And then the thing to think about here are, with that integration, is there, you know, is there information getting written back to cost? Because that was a big need. Are there business rules that can be applied that streamline that process? So business rules and integration are often, you know, interwoven in terms of an effective solution. You know, we talked about improving the customer experience, so there's an opportunity to do branded emails, coupons, those sort of things, branded pack slips. Also, in terms of your channels and your business, what areas are growing, and you may be doing, you know, maybe doing a more manual process because it's a new channel and it's growing, but looking forward, it might be your fastest growing area. You know, 3 months from now, if you're still doing it manually, are you compromising, you know, sort of the efficiency on the warehouse and, you know, adding costs when you really can't afford to?
And you know, as we talked earlier, are you having requirements that are being sort of pushed upon you from retailers or different sales channels that you may be opening up? Leveraging things like time and transit calculations. You know, is there an opportunity in your business to reduce your cost by being smart about your carrier service selection? Can I use ground instead of 2-day? Can I use, you know, 3-day instead of 2-day? Things of that nature, having some logic automate that service selection for you.
And, you know, in terms of time and transit and tracking, we have a customer who, you know, post-shipment does a process where they're tracking those items as they're flowing to deliver to, again, provide more proactive customer support. So they know where things are at any point in time, and they can be proactive with that customer. There was one customer I was talking to where they're sending out a whole set of promotional materials for a launch, it was a consumer packaged product. They're sending, like, posters for their stores at about 1,000 of these locations. They had to coordinate the delivery of all those items and be able to track those. There happened to be a storm, or actually in this case I think it was actually a train issue in Colorado that caused some disruption in terms of deliveries, and so they could easily, quickly see, hey, here's the situation, talk to their logistics and their promotion team to give everyone, hey, here's the answer of where everything's at, they're going to get there, and then the media campaign that was running in parallel still could be supported with the point of sale materials in the store. In terms of attacking this, there's a lot of different options. Often what that results in, hey, where do I start? We sort of prescribe what we call an agile approach. Start with something simple that you can solve in a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, and use that to justify and knock off the next item. So looking across your fulfillment process, where the areas of pain, cost came up as the top one earlier. I think based on what we learned today, of that, what's the one area that you could solve? Maybe it's a customer where there's a certain charges, there's a certain arrangement that you have with them that you could automate. Maybe it's as simple as integration, and you can download one of the pro products, and within a day you can see, hey, this is going to provide some value. But it's when we say agile, it's trying to do things in a bite-sized way that then leads to incremental value, and then funds itself, and then you can use those savings and the benefits of that to the next phase. So for additional information, you can visit our website at upsready.ozdevelopment.com. You can also send an email into sales@ozdevelopment.com or give us a call. I saw one of the questions was, I'm in IT, and can I get a copy of these slides, and how do I speak to someone to go into more detail for my particular situation? As Jamie said, we will be providing this as a recorded session and the slides separately. So if you want to use the slides internally, you're welcome to do that. And obviously, if you want to talk to someone about your specific situation, send an email or a phone call.
Thank you so much, Brian and Troy. That was a great presentation. What I wanted to do is try to field some of the questions that were coming in throughout the presentation, so we'll take the next few minutes to try to answer as many questions as possible. For those questions that didn't get answered, we will certainly reach out to you after the presentation, or as Brian said, we're more than happy to set up some time to talk to you about your individual situation. So the first question we had here is, once the tracking information comes back into the ERP system, is it a hyperlink that will take us right to the UPS tracking page, or we have to copy and paste?
It really depends on the ERP system. So many systems, it's a hyperlink. Some systems won't allow you to embed a hyperlink like that, so it's just the tracking number that gets copied back in there. One example that we use a lot is NetSuite as an accounting system available through OzLINK Pro. That one happens to be an example where it is a hyperlink directly. Both are available.
We have multiple locations around the world with multiple UPS account numbers. Is the monthly fee based on account number, or is it a fee that covers our company at all warehouse locations?
It's really dependent on the shipping stations that you have. We certainly have corporate licensing available if we end up with lots of locations and lots of shipping workstations. But in general terms, it's really licensed down to the shipping workstation where WorldShip resides.
The next question is OzLINK running the inventory management, or is it just reporting back to ERP? And ERP deducts that part from the inventory. I think we may have answered that one a little bit earlier.
Yep.
Okay. That looks like all the questions that we have. I'll give people a minute if you have any additional questions to add that into the question panel. Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for attending today's OzLINK for UPS webinar, Extending the Capabilities with OzLINK for UPS Custom. The recording of this webinar along with the presentation slides are going to be emailed to you. Most likely you'll get those tomorrow. If you do have additional questions, you can visit our site, as Brian mentioned, at upsready.ozdevelopment.com. You can email us at sales@ozdevelopment.com, or you can call us at 508-366-1969. And again, we can talk to you individually about your particular situation. Thank you again, and we do look forward to seeing you at the next OzLINK for UPS event.